Broadcasting the information the mainstream media won't touch. This is The Richie Allen Show in association with DavidIke.com.
Thrilled to be welcoming back our next guest to the programme. He's an amazing guy. I've said this time and time again. One of the most selfless, one of the most helpful, and one of the most conscientious people I've gotten to know since doing this programme. Check out his website, markbajerski.com. You heard me, that's markbajerski.com. Get on to his website straight away. He's an international healer, he's a spiritualist and an author. The Accidental Psychic, I recommend it. I really do. He's based in Spain. Tonight we're going to get into subjects like spells, voodoo, curses and psychic attacks, to name a few. It's very interesting stuff, this. I did say at the beginning of the programme, these are areas of great interest to me, recent interest to me, things that I used to dismiss out of hand some time ago. But because of personal experiences, because of meeting people, they've become, hugely interesting to me as I progress on my own kind of journey of discovery as to what's really going on. Let's welcome back to the programme. He's in San Pedro, lovely part of the world in Spain. I guarantee it's not raining there. It's our friend Mark Bajerski. Welcome back, mate. How are you?
Oh, fantastic, Richie. I've got my cup of tea here, Yorkshire tea, not Barry's, and I'm ready for a lovely, homely chat with everybody out there. And before I even start, I want to just thank quite a lot of your listeners are absolutely amazing people. We've become friends, and they've helped me along this journey these past few weeks since being on your show. They've been my foundation. They've been lovely souls, and a lot of them are coming over here now to the Pure Energy Healing Academy, and I just want to thank you for that, and I want to thank them, because bringing us together like that, it tells me how important your show is and what your show does for so many people. I just wanted you to know that as well. I want to thank you.
Thanks for saying that. It's nice to have a platform, and all along the whole idea of this 18 months ago or just under that, was to find a way to give people with powerful messages and powerful experiences to speak, but also to try and make an audience of it, not to just do it for the sake of doing it, but to grow it and that. But the people that come on the programme are wonderful people. They make it. They're fascinating. Their life experiences are amazing and they're important. And I'm glad that it means something to people, Mark. Thanks very much for saying that and for supporting it, mate, as you do. And you support the independent media in general. I really appreciate that. What a fascinating... I mean, I had no idea. I invited you on because I love listening to you. And I leave it up to you. And I had no idea what you're going to talk about. And today, I see you posted that you wanted to get into voodoo, curses, psychic attacks. Now, voodoo, what a fascinating subject that is. How would you define voodoo, first of all? That's the question in itself, isn't it? How would you define it?
Wow, that's a very interesting question. You asked some really deep questions. To be honest with you, the best way I can describe the reason why I've asked to bring this subject up of what one would call the dark arts is that I want to dispel quite a lot of things that people are actually afraid of. And I think the best way that any of us can come across in an interview is that they haven't read a book and actually repeated, but they've actually experienced the things that I've experienced. And when you've met somebody who's gone through such pain and suffering, you can feel that. So I'd like to begin with, if it's okay with you, Richie, I'd like to begin with a story. When I first started this path, I came to a village called Mijas Pueblo, is where I live.
You're not in San Pedro. My apologies. Of course you're in Mijas.
No,
yeah.
It's fine.
I'm an idiot. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Mark. Yeah.
You might be reading the future, and that's where I might be next.
It could be it too, yeah.
So anyway, I met this lady, and she became what I consider to be a friend. And she was an elderly lady, and I wanted to help her because she had no transport, and she found it very difficult to clean and look after herself. And I took it upon myself for 2 years of helping her and looking after her. This very lady ended up being a high Wiccan priestess. She spent most of her childhood in a different part of the world where voodoo was very, very predominant. And she had a lot of information. She studied a lot. She had a PhD. And basically what happened is she helped me along my journey, which I was really, really happy about. She showed me things that I didn't know about myself. So what she was good at was seeing and explaining what I was doing, which I had no idea, which was fantastic because she put the final like tick in the box and it kind of made sense, which was wonderful for me. Anyway, I don't know if you know there's a fine line between helping somebody and living somebody's life. Do you understand what that means, Richie?
I think I do, Mark. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I think I do. Yeah.
Okay. Well, basically what happened is I started living her life, and a day came when I needed to step back, and I would have hoped that she would have loved me for what I'd done, and I would have hoped that she would have been proud of me. Because I had started to get a reputation of being a fairly successful psychic and healer, when in fact it was the opposite. From the moment I stepped back, there was an attack instantly. Now, bear in mind, this lady had, I would say, an energy which was extremely powerful in the sense of what we call anger, jealousy and frustration. Now, you can imagine if you've helped somebody for 2 years and all of a sudden that person isn't there anymore, that anger and that frustration and all that what comes out is because of fear, because now they have to look after themselves. So it wasn't actually her fault, it was mine for not seeing that fine line between helping somebody and living their life.
Now, this is somebody that used her abilities as a force for good. Ordinarily, she'd been a strong force for good previously, and now is not using those abilities and those energies for good. Is that typical, Mark?
There's a fine line again between this work and being somebody who wants to help and love people and make an effort to give them all the information and clear all the negativity away, then that fine line of power, ego, wanting to be controlling and wanting people to only listen to them, and I am the only person that can help you. And it happens, Richard. It breaks my heart, but it happens. And sometimes people don't even realize when they're doing it. And that's the sad part. It really is sad.
I can imagine. Go ahead. This is great, Jay. Go ahead.
Yeah, getting back to the story, we had our separation and all these attacks were coming in left, right and centre. I was bombarded on Google, things said about me, which, to be honest with Richie, broke my heart. I was crying most days. My wife was in tears. My daughter was in tears. We didn't know what to do. And it ended up becoming absolutely horrifying. And I'm not going to go into the details, but it was horrifying. I couldn't even write it in my book. But anyway, to cut a long story short now, we're at a stage where we spent 3 years of pain and suffering and attacks, okay? I had travelled many different countries. I had met many different psychics, many different healers. I had met wonderful people who were shamans. I met high Wiccan priestesses, priests. I had met, you name it, I'd met them all. And I went to them for help because I felt it was really important for me to clear this energy and to stop these attacks. The last moment I can remember of the pain and suffering which stopped was a very powerful shaman. I went to a ritual and he did this ritual and he looked in my eyes and said, "You can leave now. All is fixed, cleared. There is no more pain or suffering, and I have taken away the curses, I've taken away the spells, I've taken away everything." So I took a deep breath and said thank you, and I came back to Spain and I came into my room Sat down, switched the computer on, boom, another attack instantly. So my heart just sank. I am not somebody who likes to fight. I don't like to have conflict in my life. I just want to help and love people. And you can imagine, and I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this show can understand that all you ever wanted to do was help. And now you have this energy of attack, or whatever it is you call it, whether it is spells or curses, whatever it is, you've got all this energy coming at you and you're feeling it. What I did then is I hung my head down and I burst into tears again. I'm a man, but I did cry. I was just in so much pain. I just didn't know where to turn because, I'd done everything. I'd been to everybody. And then, very, very strange thing happened, Richie. I even can see myself doing it now. For no reason at all, I picked up a chair and put it into the center of the room. I sat in that chair and I put my hand over my head and I said, "No one has the power over you." And I said that maybe 10 times, but I didn't just say the words, I actually felt the words. And I realized that it wasn't me who was putting my hand over my head. I realized it was spirit. Somebody was helping me. And I had to have gone through all that I went through for that particular moment to realize that actually all that I'd been through and all that pain and all that suffering was my own. It wasn't that person. It was me. I had focused all my energy, all my heart towards that soul that was doing all what they were doing to me. And I was lighting a fire so big that it was me who was causing the pain and suffering in myself. So I realized at that moment that the only person who could have ever have healed that situation was me. Now, I spend all my years now telling people all about voodoo. I have many stories about the shamans and witches. I can tell you many other stories. But that story for me was profound because it was my story, Richie. I felt it. I felt the experience. I needed to feel it to be able to help people who go through that same very experience. Now, remember, this lady was a Wiccan high priestess. She was extremely powerful. But the thing is, Richie, the power is not within them. It is our belief in their power. Do you understand that bit or not?
I do understand that. And a mutual friend of ours, Patricia Braunschweiler, asked this very question. Is this dependent on the person whom this energy is intended for? Is it dependent on them believing that it can happen, that the other person has that ability to do that to them? Which is a great question. That's what you're getting at here.
That is 100% accurate. Through my experience, that is that is what I believe. Now, there are many different forms of attacks. This is just one where I believe that these spells or whatever. I'll give you a for instance. I have over the past years, many people come to me screaming with all sorts of issues with curses. Just across the sea is Morocco. Now, there's a lot of older generations who dabble in that kind of energy. So they come here saying, "Mark, we heard that you're able to dispel or clear these things." And I say, explain. First of all, I actually ask them to sit down and say, when did you know about this curse? I found this curse attached to me, say last week, 7 days ago. Okay, when did you start feeling the pain and suffering? Last week, about 7 days ago. And before that, were you in any issue or pain or trouble, or were things going wrong? No? Okay. So you're telling me then that you've got this curse attached to you because somebody has told you that you've got this curse attached to you. And you know, Richard, that really is the bottom line to how these people who are in a bad place, who send their negativity, their energy, they realize that the only way they can make this power work is by getting a message to you. I think one thing that springs to mind, did you ever watch the James Bond film with the voodoo?
Oh, I think it was Live and Let Die, wasn't it? I could be wrong.
Well,
it might have been
yeah.
set in New Orleans. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And the woman walks into the room and she sees a black hat. It was a very tall one with feathers in it, and she screams because
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
what I believe is that these people have to get a message to you. They have to get some sort of message to you one way or another, because they know that the greatest power is yours. And if they can manipulate that power for you to believe that they have done something.
This is massively important now. How does this relate to the miserable, depressing experiences that so many people are going through in life? People who are feeling down, are feeling fed up. They might understand there's something bigger going on than what they get from their newspaper or the news. They really feel it. How does this relate to them? Is this sort of thing happening to people without their knowledge, and is it coming from a far more sinister place than, in your case, this high priestess who you'd had a great relationship with, you'd done some great things for her, that was a personal thing. But is this happening to people, Mark, coming from somewhere, far more sinister, to affect people, to condition people to accept their lot in life and to be good slaves and good sheep and to go and do what they're supposed to do? Or am I going off on a tangent?
Not at all. There's different levels, but you know more than anybody, Richard, that fear is the biggest selling commodity or energy in this world. Fear sells more than anything. Just think about the human soul. It cries for help, and the mind tells us otherwise. The mind fights. So we have this battle. I've told you about the battle between the heart and mind. It's the biggest battle of all. We're fed every day fear on different levels, different platforms, and we have become almost conditioned to believe in fear than goodness and happiness. We find it very difficult to actually hold on to happiness because we feel there's something wrong. If we're happy every day, we kind of like, hey, this isn't right. And then we go back into the fear bit. I mean, if we look just on the internet alone, if we look at Facebook, which is so powerful now, it feeds negativity. I spent so many years trying to send messages out there saying to people, please stop this. 2012 isn't the end. There's going to be 2013 and 2014, and so it will continue. Do not buy into the fear. Now, the thing is, Richie, we go back to where I said right at the beginning, which is that good people sometimes can see that it's easy to manipulate somebody, and that goodness within them turns to ego and power and greed. And, humans as such, we tend to put borders around us or gates around us. We tend to spend our life saying this is mine and nobody else's, and we don't share like we should do. We shouldn't have borders or what. It just breaks my heart.
I know what you mean. Yeah,
we are all going inwards. We are all suffering an illusion of darkness which isn't there. We create that darkness ourselves. Wake up, everybody. It isn't dark. It's amazing. Look around you. It's wonderful. It is beautiful. The people around you are just like you. They're wonderful. We have to awaken that. I spend my life now telling people to find happiness. Why do you think I do that, Richard? Because it is the most important and most powerful energy that dispels darkness. If you can dispel that and get rid of it, oh my God, you wake up. Now life is seen in a different set of eyes. You see life differently. Hang on a minute. All that's nonsense. It's rubbish. And then you let it go and you become stronger. You become more, we say in the spiritual world that our vibration vibrates a lot higher or more powerful or more stronger. Of course it does. Why? Because we're not being pulled into this negative world, which the government does it. It's all businesses tend to try and pull you into something. And how do they do it? because you need this.
Yeah, you must have it.
This.
Yeah.
No, you don't. Just go to Thailand and just sit with the people who live in huts, who don't have anything, who have got the biggest smiles in the world.
Happiest people in the world, yeah. To give you anything. I wouldn't ordinarily do this now, but because you're on this subject, what Mark is talking about, a lot of it is the basis for Phantom Self, which is David's new book. I'm just going to put that out there. I wouldn't ordinarily do that during an interview, but it is relevant and it's worth saying. Mark, I'm going to read a few tweets, mate, because you've lit up Twitter here. There's a massive amount of interest in this. Gary was on to say, does Mark think the fear-based reality we live in causes the draw to what seems the stronger power? Yet it isn't. He's just answered that. That's a very good question as well. Chris was on to ask about the definition of a psychic attack. Could it be defined? Possibly. Gio was on to say, Gio is a lady and absolutely believes that because of a string of difficult events and problems, that she's been hexed in some way, shape or form. Mark might come back to that in a second, Gio, but I think from what he's been saying already, a lot of the power of this is dependent on you believing that you're hexed and that there's no way out. Love all the stuff, says Brian. This is an email from Brian. Love all the stuff about low vibrational frequencies. Used to think this was crazy. Now I totally understand it. Good stuff, says Brian. Wayne was on to say, the real issue is know thyself. You cannot be touched if you have integrated your own darkness and light, the grey, etc. I want to say hi to Zana in New Zealand. How you doing, Zana? Good to hear from you. JP in Manchester says this. Deep inside the pineal gland is a mini universe. The soul of a man. Don't look around you, look within. There is no God. You are him, says JP. And finally, for the second, David Kona was on to say, what Mark is talking about is linked to electromagnetism, as described by the aforementioned David Icke. And there's another 20 tweets just come in there, literally. I hate people who say literally normally. Why did I just say that? 20 tweets have come in. And if you want to see what other people are saying, Richie Allen Show, all one word, no inverted commas, no nothing. Richie Allen Show, press enter on Twitter. It'll give you everybody else's tweets. Lot to get into there, mate. This is important stuff.
Okay. Everybody's tweets are fantastic, very positive. Thank you very much, because this kind of field of work, if you can't see it, then it doesn't exist. It's not real. When you actually step out of your mind and you start to focus within your heart and start to open your mind to, there is more than what we see. That is a fact. And when you start to meditate, when you start to eat right, when you start to look after yourself, when you start to let go of the fear, all of a sudden, the world seems different. You feel different. You start to grow in what I call a spiritual heightened awareness. And when that happens, I'm telling you, everybody, if you can just step into that, you would be blown away. And there is so much more. I mean, you talk about David Icke going down a rabbit hole. Well, there is a spiritual rabbit hole, and it's never ending. It is beautiful and it is amazing. And I work on that every day. But going back to another interesting point about voodoo and these spells, I've got a good one, because I've got a client and she's a lovely soul. She's beautiful, in fact, in more ways than one. She's highly spiritual, and she is deep in conversation. When we talk to each other, it's very powerful. Anyway, there was a day that came that I had invited a shaman to come and do a ritual. Well, it got back to the shaman. I don't know who said it, and somebody in the room must have said, by the way, that girl over there, she's very famous singer. And he was from Peru. He didn't know. But when he got to find out, I hadn't been there that long. I think I'd left. And a few days later, she came to see me, and she handed me a bottle, okay? I've got it in my hand here. It's a little bottle, and it's filled with Peruvian, what looks like to be all sorts of plants. And then there's a liquid inside it, okay? And there's a top, and it's very tight. And she says, Mark, I'm a little bit worried. And I said, what's wrong? She said, when I went to see the shaman, he said that I had demons inside me. And I said, I beg your pardon? She said, he said I had demons inside me. And I just stepped back. I was utter shock. And she says, will you do me the greatest of favors? And I said, what's that? She said, he made this bottle and he told me to keep this bottle because my demons are in this bottle. And if the bottle ever breaks, you must see me immediately, call me immediately. And if you ever open the bottle, you must call me immediately. Now, Richie, here's the funny thing. This was 7 years ago, and every group of people who come from around the world to the Pure Energy Healing Academy, and I talk about voodoo and spells, I tell them this story as I'm opening the bottle and they're all having a good smell.
Yeah.
And my friend is doing wonderful, and I have never told her that. So this is the first time I've mentioned it. And I hope just by them few stories that it will help some of your beautiful listeners to the fact that the truth is the only person who can hurt you is yourself.
You know, this is really taken off on Twitter. I've got to mention these tweets. By the way, go to markbajerski.com. Paul is on to say, Paul Jackson, this is very important, this, because I think he's really grasped this. Richie, just look at the mainstream media. Every week they put out a negative story on the National Health Service, but they never talk about the good ones. There's a reason for that, and that's, you know, you can only say so much on Twitter, but I know what Paul is getting at. There is a reason why the news and newspapers are full to the brim of horrible negative stories. It isn't because fear sells and blood sells. It isn't because that's what they tell you. It's far deeper than that. Raymond was on to say, bumped into Raymond, by the way, and Ben on Saturday. Raymond knows you. Raymond Lynch, he knows you well, Mark. A lovely fella. Met Raymond and his partner Ben on Saturday at the Wake Up Manchester festivities. Lovely bloke. Raymond has just tweeted, since my awakening, I have lost the fear that the system had spent years putting in me. The fear is gone and I'm enlightened now. Joanne came on to say she's in Spain. I live to be happy. Using meditation, tapping, hypnosis, whichever technique I need for the day. And following Mark and myself tonight will be another meditation from the wonderful Kim Hutchison. I'll tell you more about that a bit later on. Fear. This is the recurring theme coming through the tweets, Mark. The power of fear, how it's used against people.
It is every day, Richie. You just need to go onto Facebook and every now and again people will have a blowout, and I'm chuckling to myself because they say, enough, no more, I can't stand this anymore. And you're right, that's your heart saying, I can't cope with this anymore. And what happens is our mind is, unfortunately, it's almost like a magnet to this fear. You see, the mind doesn't want to stop, Richie. The mind is geared up to basically work full time. And if you sort of say, well, full stop after whatever your thought is, your mind says, what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, hey, I'm here to work. And so what happens is we become imprisoned in our minds. And all we do, and most people know this, it's hard to get to sleep. A lot of you out there must know what I'm saying. Your mind is constantly working. Why? Because you have allowed the fear to actually take over, and the mind has got so used to that fear and that kind of trying to work everything out that we tend to keep going and until we burn out. You've heard of the word burnout, right? A lot of people burn out because our minds are like, I kind of see it like a car raised up in a garage, and somebody's sat inside it and switched the engine on and racing it, but the wheels are going round, but the car's going nowhere. That's how I consider the mind and how we work with our mind. And eventually that engine's going to explode, and that's where you turn to people like myself or many other healers, psychiatrists, anybody who can help, you know, or you may try and go on holiday, or you may turn to unfortunately drugs, you know, and then it's a slippery slope, you know, and then all because of the mind. And this is why meditation is so important. Even if you don't do it and you don't believe in it, if we can even just try to quieten ourselves for 5 or 10 minutes a day, you would be surprised that 5 and 10 minutes can actually set you up for the whole of the day. And you think to yourself, well, what good is that? Sat thinking of nothing. How can I do that? How can I still my mind when everything is going, yeah, it's an art.
Something? I tried meditation many years ago reluctantly when I'd kind of more or less come to the end of my therapeutic sessions, my therapy journey with a psychotherapist in Waterford after some of what I went through when I was younger. And I found it terrific. I really did, being somebody whose mind races and who spends most of their time thinking about what I should be doing, what I could have done, what I didn't do, all the negative stuff. I found it absolutely fascinating. Worth another plug that after this programme, Kim will have a meditation for those adversely affected by nuclear and biological weapons, vaccines and GMOs, healing meditation from Kim Hutchison a bit later on. Mark, what you said there touched a real memory in me. I went to see the hypnotherapist who was doing a stage show many years ago called Paul Golden. A lot of older listeners will remember Paul. He used to be on the circuit doing all the theatres years ago. He was a medical hypnotherapist. He did a lot of work with people, but to make a few bob on the side, he did the funny shows, getting people to chase leprechauns and the usual stuff that hypnotists do. But during the interval of when he was taking the mickey out of people, he did speak for about 20 minutes about things like why when you leave your house, Mark, do you return to check that the door is locked even though you know you did it. I remember when he said this, my kind of jaw just dropped on the floor, He talked a lot about worrying about things unnecessarily and the negative effect that can have on the body, on the spirit, on the soul, how destructive it could be, just simple things like that. And I felt very embarrassed listening to him because that's me. That's me, I walk out the door, I lock up, I will turn back 20 metres down the road. I will come back to check what I already know that I've done. And I know that's negative and it's wrong and it sets off a chain of other feelings in you and stuff like that. But maybe I'm going off on a tangent there. But it's very important. What you're talking about there, this constant, a head full of nothing, a head full of silliness, basically. And what that can do to you.
That's 99.9% of the world, Richie. That's the truth. We've really bought into fear. I mean, we really have. I mean, you just need to look around you. Most people talk about the negative rather than the positive. And people like me are attacked for being nice. I have people attack me daily because they cannot believe that I am the person that I am. I have people always watching to see when I'm going to fall. And you've been waiting a long time.
Yeah.
But what breaks my heart most of all is that people have to focus on other people instead of themselves. That breaks my heart. When you're focused on other people, what are you doing for yourself? I mean, you're going to spend your whole life looking at other people. What about looking at yourself? My change, my whole moment, my divine moment was when I stopped and looked into the mirror, Richard. It was the biggest moment of my life, and it was the most painful moment because I saw something I didn't like, but I had the courage to stand up and say, I can't be like my dad. I can't be that person who's abusing people and saying awful things and being nasty, and this isn't me. I don't want to be like that. And all what my father did to me, because I'm sorry, Richie, but life is about a lot to do with our parents and how they bring us up, or when we're young, how we're influenced by people. And one of the biggest things for me was just before my dad moved into the light, I rung him up and told him I loved him. And he said, Who are you? I said, I'm your son. I'm Mark. And he says, oh, okay. And I went, okay, Dad, I just want you to know I love you. And I needed to let that go. I needed for him to know I loved him. And even though he abused me, I realized that my heart said, Mark, forgive your father. You don't have to forgive what he did to you, but forgive him. And that was a real, real moment of my life when I could move on. And then I was able to find happiness. I was able to become more happy as a person. And I said, I went to a boxing gym, and the guy said, hit that.
Get rid of the rage. Get rid of all the rage. Yeah, get all the anger out.
And he said, you punch like a woman. He said, what's wrong with you? And he said, look, just think about the most horrible person. Think about somebody who you hate. So I started thinking, and after about 3 minutes, he said, what's wrong? And I said, I don't hate anybody. And I give the bag a cuddle. And he said,
He probably, after his comments about punching like a woman, he probably didn't think too much more highly of you afterwards.
I don't want to hate, Richie. I don't want you to hate. I don't want anybody to hate, because there is a truth in this. What you hate, you sometimes become. And it's not, and that's not saying that you become that person that you hate in the sense of that you are in that hate. You are feeling that. It is within you. It is setting off some sort of energy which isn't good for you.
Well, can I this is going to be fun, this, because I'm not going to contradict you, but I'm going to say there's another road, or there's another path. When my father died last September, just as I was about to take a couple of weeks off, I found it decidedly inconvenient that he died, because I didn't have anything to do with him for 15 or more years. I didn't care that he died. I wasn't happy either. I can honestly say I never hated him or anybody. I hate what he did, but I didn't forgive him for it, and I didn't care that he'd passed on and that I hadn't ever expressed to him, I forgive you, or any of that sort of thing. And you could say to me now, but are you happy? And I would say that, 90% of my days, my weeks, I'm pretty much a happy person. I mean, I love where I am. I love what I do. I love who I'm with, who I share my time with. But I could never forgiving and not hating, or I should say, never forgiving and not hating are not incompatible. At least not for me anyway. If you said to me tomorrow, or if you said to me in 10 years' time when I have my own children, Richie, do you still say that you don't forgive your father? And I would say, yes, I don't forgive him. I don't forgive anybody who would do that to a child. Having no good excuse or no good reason. You didn't have any mental illness. You did it because you were a nasty person. But I never held on to any hatred either. And I don't think, and I could be wrong, of course, how do I know? Because I don't know. I don't think it's held me back emotionally so much anyway.
I completely understand that. That's probably one of the reasons why, for me, I find it easier to be able to forgive that person, but not his actions. So I forgave my dad for what he did. And do you know what? I learned a valuable lesson from that. And I thank him for that every day. Why? Because I brought two beautiful children into this world, never even wanting to even think or a thought of raising my hands to my children. So I've broken the mold of my dad, and that's what's important. And I thank it. Do you know, I want to finish on a note, and this is going to absolutely throw you sideways. It's probably going to throw a lot of the people sideways too. The first mention of this show was about a lady who came into my life. She moved into the light not so long ago, and the night she moved into the light, I felt her come through. I knew she'd moved into the light. I could feel her. At the bottom of my bed. Now, remember, she'd spent 2 or 3 years doing as much as she could to try and hurt me and my family. I'm going to tell you something now, Richie, which might throw you, okay? Are you ready?
Go on.
I realised that she was one of my best friends in the spirit world.
But that wouldn't throw me necessarily.
Really?
No, because knowing you and where you were coming from and the sort of person you are, that wouldn't surprise me. That no, it wouldn't. I'm sure it would be jaw-dropping for a lot of people, considering the difficulties that you had with the attacks and everything. But no, I'm not surprised, mate.
Let me explain something. At that moment, everything fitted together for me. And what really, really sunk in was this. Before we come here to choose the paths and the challenges and the tests that we all do, which are all very personal and very individual. If I was to choose something so painful, wouldn't I ask somebody who I loved in the spirit world and who cared for me? So the moment that I left this world, it all made sense. that it was my best friend, and that I asked them to do something so difficult, who would I want to do that? My best friend. So therefore, my belief now is when somebody is hurt by somebody else, sometimes it may be not the person that you think it is, or the anger that we have towards them. And this is why I say there's a bigger picture, Richie, and we only understand that bigger picture when we move back home, when we move into the light. Just so you know, when I speak about voodoo and curses and all of these things, I didn't get onto the psychic attacks and the spiritual emergencies. The spiritual emergencies are very, very different. And that's a different subject completely.
We'll get into that next time you're on. We'll pick this up again in a month or 6 weeks' time, and we'll get you back on. If you go on to Twitter yourself, Mark, and put Richie Allen Show in the search bar, look at all the tweets that came in.
Really?
Massive amount of tweets this hour. This subject has really touched a lot of people, and it's very serious. And again, I'm delighted you're getting into it. It's something that I've had private chats with David Icke on this particular subject over the last few years. You know, low vibrational emotions like fear, how destructive they are, how they're used by the system that wants to keep us all where it wants us to be, which is going along. The wage slaves for the for the elite. It's fascinating. It's hugely important. It really is. I could just quickly fly down the tweets, but I really will be here all day. I want to thank Karen for her tweet for Elaine. Sarah says, Richie, I've missed you again. She's in Australia, I think, just coming in on the end of the programme. It's in the small hours of the morning there. I love Mark. I wish he was my best friend or my flatmate, she says, with a big smiley face. Says Sarah. Lovely thoughts, Sarah. Thanks very much for that. So I'll give you the last word on it then, mate, and we'll wrap it up. Folks, do check out markbajerski.com, and Mark's book, Diary of an Accidental Psychic, is a terrific read. He was kind enough to send it to us here in Manchester, to Caroline. I've been flicking through it as well as Caroline's been reading it, and it is really, really, really terrific. It's really authentic. That's the impression you get when you're reading Mark Bajerski. I'll give you the final word, my friend, and we'll then call it a day. Time has deserted us again.
Oh, it's all, it's just like sitting in front of an open fire with you and just having a good old chat. And I love that about you, Richie. You bring out the best in me, and everybody loves you, Richie. We all love you, and that's why we support you. And we will always support you because you've got that energy that really, really is truthful. And when you are truthful, it is a rare commodity these days, because there's so much influence to try and at least take that goodness from you and try to bring you to that low vibration, whereas you say in the face of it you're a warrior, and you will not allow that to happen. And the beautiful thing about life is that we all go through ups and downs. That's life. But if we can always hold on to positivity, if we can try and smile, if we can try and do some good for other people, if we can try and help ourselves and give us that time for ourselves, and we start to eventually open up and we start to realize that there is love, that there is beauty, that there is beautiful people out there like you, Richie, like many, many people. There are more beautiful people out there than negative and difficult people. That is the honest to God's truth. And I see them every day. And I know that lots and lots of people listening tonight are listening with their hand on their heart, and they're smiling, saying, yeah, I am a good person and I am doing my best in this world. That is all that's ever asked of any of us. So we just keep going, we keep smiling, we keep putting our energy into what we do, we give with our hearts, we help people as much as we can. This is the way forward. That is the path to enlightenment and truth. And I wish you all, and I truly mean this with my hand on my heart, I wish you all a lovely, lovely year, and I hope that miracles come and you see them each day.
Magnificent, mate. We'll be talking again real soon. Thanks so much for the kind words, and folks, check out markbajerski.com. Mark, enjoy the rest of the evening there in Mihas, and we'll talk in the next few days. Lovely to have you back on, mate. Bye for now.
Bye, Richie.
Wonderful stuff from Mark Bajerski there on the line to us from Mijas Costa, lovely part of Spain.